The Wes Penre Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The Second Level of Learning. http://wespenre.com. Metaphysics Paper Number 2, Creation of Universes. By Wes Penre, Friday, June 15, 2012. Revised, December 12, 2012 at 4:30 a.m. http://wespenre.com. Part 2. 4. The Manifestation of the Creator in the Physical Universe. In many religions on earth we learn that God is a being, sometimes seemingly of flesh and blood. In metaphysics we tend to think about God as the all that is, whom embraces everything and everybody around us, ourselves included. But we don't usually think of God as manifest, neither as a being of flesh and blood, nor as a spirit of a kind like that of you and I, but something grander and almost incomprehensible. However, new research I've done suggests that the goddess can actually manifest in the physical. The goddess created the web of the multiverse with grids and holes, metaphorically speaking. The holes are the goddess manifest and corresponds with dark matter and dark energy. Her creation is not yet finished, and she can spin more webs as she sees fit, and let appointed creator gods come in and create. Anonymous sources are telling me that she is also able to take on a physical form so beings can see her, and she is apparently always manifesting herself in a fashion which is appealing to the beholder, something the observer is familiar with and can refer to. Barbara Hand-Clough is telling us a similar thing. Both Marciniak's Pleiadians and those of Hand-Clough acknowledge the divine feminine. Here is a first quote from a channeled session by Hand-Clough. As you enter Aquarius, the women as daughters of Earth will be the first players on the stage as Pleiadian storytellers. This has already begun. We Pleiadians do not express ourselves via sexual gender, but we are the guardians of the goddess and we have a very feminine vibration. As we speak of woman, we speak of Gaia in each one of you. Your male and female selves are both goddess and god, and as Earth has witnessed an overabundance of male energy, we Pleiadians are here to help all of you awaken the goddess within. During this most recent journey through the galactic night, you became highly self-reflective and your brains are getting very activated. You've developed yourselves magnificently so that you would be ready to challenge forces that control your reality at the cosmic party. We Pleiadians like to refer to these forces as the World Management Team, first named through channel Barbara Marciniak, and as far as I, Satya, can ascertain as I read your vibrations, these forces are directed on Earth by the Anunnaki. But can the goddess really manifest in the universe, just like the biblical alleged God did? According to some sources, the answer is yes. And not only can she do so, she does, ever so often, allegedly. So when a Christian, or non-Christian person, prays to God, he or she is praying to the Mother Goddess, and the prayers are heard. The goddess, in her manifestation, is a very compassionate being, and if help is asked for, help is usually coming, in one form or another. People who pray for something specific often expect that specific thing to manifest, and when it doesn't manifest exactly the way the person expects it to, they don't think the prayer is heard. This is often not the case, and I'll make an example. John is praying that he will be better at doing his job, because he feels like his co-workers are better than he is. Believing in prayers, he is hoping his wish will come true. Still, the day after he makes a couple of terrible mistakes at work which will draw attention from his co-workers. He goes home in the evening, very discouraged, and thinks prayers probably don't help. But he tells himself to give it another chance, and he prays again for the same thing. The next day, he is making a few similar mistakes as the day before and is even more discouraged and decides that prayers don't work and stops praying. If John instead would have looked at what kind of mistakes he made these 2 days, he would perhaps have noticed that they were exactly the things he needed to improve on to be able to be as good as his co-workers. If he had taken that into consideration and developed his skills in these particular areas, he would perhaps have had a good chance to succeed. So instead of magically improve at work, the goddess pointed out in which area he needed to do his own work, so the prayer was actually heard. This is often how prayers are manifested, help is coming, but the person who asks for it still has to do the job. Help is often coming in form of tools, so that the person can learn on their own. Individual souls, whom on their own merit, or groups of beings who have evolved together to create a composite, can on occasion have direct encounters with the goddess, and if ready, the goddess may appoint these individuals to become creator gods as she and they see fit. When the evolution of an intelligent species is not interfered with and manipulated by external forces in any major way, a whole species, or the majority of them, can evolve together and be appointed creator gods by the goddess herself and become a collective consciousness of creator gods. This I see can happen when the members of the species are open to each other and share their experiences so that they all can learn both individually and as a group. If no secrets are held, the species after some time becomes a collective consciousness. Those who don't grasp this concept sometimes call a star race like this a hive community and refer to it as a community with one authority whom the rest of the species follow without questioning. Although I'm sure there are such cultures, this is not what I am referring to here. Then, on occasion, there are individuals, or groups of individuals, who become creator gods without have been appointed by the goddess, and do so by means of technology, and with a purpose of gaining power over others and cheat their way up to godhood rather than doing it to contribute to the greatest good of all involved. Part of humanity is about to do just that. By infiltration and manipulation by off-world forces, mankind has fallen into the shadowlands of reality, and a lot of secrets are held in a hierarchical structure, and it works its way down to separate everyday people, who follow the same examples to lie, cheat, and hold secrets from each other. It's a very dangerous path and needs to be broken, as any ethical and moral reader can see, or these beings will do harm to the universal creation as a whole, and eventually to themselves as well, more harm than they can imagine at this point in time. But I will blow it up to an extent that I hope people will understand the dilemma we are in and what needs to be done. It can be hard for us to understand this process of being appointed, perhaps by a manifestation of the goddess herself, in physical or in spirit, but our nervous system while still stuck in 3D reality is very limited, and it requires of us to think outside the box a lot to expand our consciousness. 5. Creation as the perfect symphony. As mentioned in the beginning of this paper, music and sound are both a huge part of creation. It is now pretty clear to the reader that I am not a supporter of the Big Bang Theory as it has been portrayed by the majority of mainstream science. Nothing, and I mean nothing at all, in the creation of this universe or others, was random and coincidental. It is a little amusing that so many cosmologists and other scientists still hang on the Big Bang Theory of randomness, and that life on Earth happened by mistake. These people are supposedly the top brains on this planet, and they count on our stupidity in trusting everything they say, because of course, most of them know better. The reason they still hang on to a sinking ship is because they need their funding. If those who fund them, the powers that be PTB def to keep it simple, want old paradigms still be promoted to the public, and the scientists who want to keep their paychecks and be rewarded for job well done better adjust to what the money masters say. However, lately we've started seeing a change in this. We now hear that they have found Earth-like planets out there in other solar systems which can be life-bearing, but this is old news and they only release what they absolutely need to in order to keep up with the growing increase of consciousness on the planet. They don't want to look like fools, either. Still, they know so much more than they let us know so much more. As we shall see in the next paper, I am not discarding the idea of a Big Bang itself. Solid evidence shows that this universe was created from a sudden Big Bang, but the difference is that mainstream science are telling us that Big Bang was the beginning of everything, when it was just the beginning of a new cycle in a seemingly endless recycling of universes. It has actually been proven by scientists, but still not accepted in mainstream, starting with a Swiss scientist in the 1960s, Dr. Hans Jenny, that sound and music form matter. It's called cymatics. In a video series on YouTube, the reader can clearly see how vibration creates form. First we see random particles spread out all over, and when sound is played, the particles come together and create amazing geometrical and other patterns. When the sound changes, so do the pattern. The universe is formed and comes together by sound. DNA activation in an individual or group is primarily happening because of sound. This is why the people who run the Wingmakers website, and other groups as well, promote music as DNA activators. A word of warning here. It's up to the individual to sign up for different DNA activation programs or not, but personally I would pass on all of them. This is something that happens naturally and is a part of the development of a species, so always question the intention of those who present such programs before you accept them. Earth resonates at a frequency of 7.8 Hz, and when a human body is able to vibrate at that same rate, there is an incredible psychic opening and increase in awareness. Sounds can even stimulate deterioration or regeneration of organs in the body. Some say that rock music of low vibrations, such as tuned-down guitars played with maximal distortion, still is uplifting to the body and mind, and at least certainly doesn't do any harm. I have heard this from skilled musicians who are also very spiritually aware. When I point out that we can clearly see the effects from those who listen to that kind of music a lot, and it's not uplifting, the spokesman blame this on the lyrics. Yes, I agree that the lyrics can, and do, work to program your brain, but the low-frequency music does the main job, albeit, often the two work together. I would go as far as to say that not only does it degrade the listener, but can also make them sick, even terminally ill. David Icke, in his book, Human Race Get Off Your Knees The Lion Sleeps No More talks about the same thing regarding creation and music. In fact, string theory in mainstream science is based on something similar. Particles are indeed invisible vibrating strings. Icke quotes the American theoretical physicist, Bert Overut, as follows. You can think of it as a violin string or a guitar string. If you pluck it in a certain way you get a certain frequency, but if you pluck it a different way you can get more frequencies on this string and in fact you have different notes. Nature is made of all the little notes, the musical notes, that are played on these superstrings. It goes on, showing a picture of a complex pattern, and underneath the picture he writes. This pattern has been created, and is held together, by particles reacting to a blueprint communicated through sound. When the sound changes the pattern changes and when the sound stops the particles return to a random state. This is how worlds are created out of the still and silent all possibility. I agree totally with Icke and the point he wants to make. The symphony of a galaxy, for example, is what keeps everything within that galaxy within a certain frequency band, which perhaps corresponds to the purposes and goals of that particular galaxy. Same goes for stars and planets and so on. These things are all sentient beings, and music I think will become a greater and greater part of a being's awareness as they evolve, and not only to have something to listen to, it's embedded in the DNA. Each person has their own song, and although most of we humans can't hear those songs, they are still there and are our signatures. The song changes slightly with our mood, and when we get more evolved, we will hear not only our own songs, but the songs of the universe itself. No worries, though, this doesn't mean each person is going to walk around hearing a billion songs at the time, but we can tune in and tune out just like we do with all the sounds constantly going on around us. Then, when we become founders, stars, galaxies etc., we're going to set the tune for our own creations, so we'd better have a good song to begin with. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Not all creator gods have a good song to share. 6. The Pyramid Builders. Sound is extremely powerful. If it's made to create universes, it can of course be tamed and used on smaller scales. All the great pyramids, for example, they stand there as monuments from past civilizations about whom we know next to nothing. It's a mystery, and the creation of these wonders of the world has puzzled mankind for thousands of years. How come we can't even slide a credit card between the cracks of many of these stones that build a pyramid? Many explanations have been suggested, both in mainstream and by alternative thinkers and researchers, one more ridiculous than the other. The theory that the pharaohs were using slave labor to transport these huge stones and put them up where they should go is widespread. This theory falls on its own merit due to that there often is not even a location nearby where these stones could have been transported from, and no less could human slave labor put stones so perfectly together. These civilizations are supposed to be very primitive compared to ours, so did the slaves use hackers and hammers to make them this perfect? It is amazing sometimes what they want people to believe, counting on that humans are extraordinary stupid, or stupefied. Sadly enough, many people accept such ludicrous theories without thinking twice about them. The pyramids were, in fact, created by the gods with sound technology, which becomes quite obvious when we understand how sound can form and format matter, as explained above. The Pleiadians further tell us that the pyramids in Egypt were used as sound devices to communicate with the heavens. But not only that, they were used for many things, and one of these things were as weights to balance electromagnetic forces and actually to create an acupuncture point of energy into the earth grid. They further explain that the Great Pyramid does not only exist above the ground. Below the ground the structure pierces the earth so energy from the cosmos can be transmitted and grounded from one age to another. The Great Pyramid in Giza has been around far longer than historians and archaeologists have postulated and has a greater purpose than any of our history books lets us know. 7. The ethereal composite and the DRAP, death recycling amnesia trap. Have you ever considered the definition of yourself? What is it that defines you? If you look in the mirror and peel away the masks, the pretensions, the deceptions, the fears, the thoughts, the feelings, what remains? For most they would answer their soul or spirit. And if I told you that the soul as most define it does not truly exist apart from the mind, what would you say? James of the Wingmakers. Now, how is that possible if we reincarnate over and over again on this planet, and all time is simultaneous and we live all these lives at the same time, from a multidimensional perspective? Don't we in that case have different minds in different lifetimes? Well, not really. Read again what James is saying in the above quote. He says, the soul as most define it does not truly exist apart from the mind. My emphasis. And how do most of us define soul? I think LPGC explains it pretty well when they tell us what the soul in fact is. They call the soul the information cloud def, which is pretty much what it is. So, let us go a little more in details about what a soul is. Let us also explain the concept of oversoul. The soul/information cloud is the part of self which gathers information from each lifetime. The information cloud is surrounding, and tightly connected with, and indexed to, the mind and the body on a specific planet. The soul is in its turn composed of a light body, or an avatar, and the mind is connected with an emotional body. All of them, including the soul/information cloud, are electrical components. The three components information cloud, mind, and body are like one unit working together, as long as the biological body is alive. During that lifetime, the body and the mind are experiencing things in the physical universe and the information cloud is collecting the experiences. The mind is therefore the personality. Then, when that particular lifetime has come to an end, the information cloud, the mind, a light body, which I will call the avatar from here on, and an emotional body, tightly connected to the mind, separate themselves from the body and are supposed to report back to the oversoul, which is the bigger part of you, the mega information cloud, if you will. I am saying supposed to for a reason, which will be clearer soon. The information cloud, the avatar, and the emotional body/mind, which I will call the ethereal composite, or EC, all in one piece move from the physical body into the astral plane, the between lives area, blat. This astral plane is a designated time/space where the EC can rest between incarnations, often with full recall of previous lifetimes. In the between lives area, blat, the EC can think up an environment with friends, relatives, and soul groups etc., and set goals for the next lifetime, as explained in Level I, with the between life information based on Dr. Michael Newton's research, and from channeling. Dr. Newton has put more than 7,000 people in regression therapy, where they all are telling him very similar stories of what happens between incarnations. Now, in order to understand what I am going to explain, we have to think of the multiverse as being very fluid. Nothing is set in stone. Everything can be changed, relived, and healed, even events that have already happened. This is what the so-called nanosecond from 1987 to 2012 is all about. When the founders want to create an intelligent species, who has the capacity built into their DNA to reach the stars once they are evolved enough, they can either invite non-physical onto energetics to descend into a body to run it, or literally create new souls from the ether. These latter souls will be created from the ocean of consciousness all around us, the 96% of spirit/goddess, which is dark matter and dark energy, to operate in the physical universe, and will become separate individuals instead of just part of the ocean. In other words, they will gain separate consciousness and become self-aware here in the 4%, they are so-called newborn souls, and hence they are very naive in the beginning until they learn. We've all been in this newborn stage. I am aware of that many channeled sources have a different view on this, saying that all souls are equally old, i.e. as old as the physical universe. This is, from what I have come to understand, not correct. From a multidimensional standpoint, the soul is ageless, because all time is simultaneous, and in addition, the soul originates from outside of time as we know it, it originates in the goddess universe. When an individual soul is born to explore the physical universe and its dimensions, in order to have individual experiences here in the 4%, at that point became individually aware. This soul can then split up in different factions to explore many realities at once, as explained in level I. Then, as these soul fragments, all of the same soul entity, are experiencing things, they are creating a storage for their own experiences, which becomes the oversoul. The more experiences a soul has, lifetime after lifetime here in the 4%, the bigger the oversoul grows, restoring all the wisdom of the different soul fragments. This oversoul exists outside of time as we know it, dwelling in the 96%, and is thus also reporting back to the goddess, who is learning about herself from the fragments of souls operating in the 4%. The purpose of our whole existence is to experience and learn so that the goddess can learn more about herself by letting fragments of herself operate randomly without any set outcome. Normally, as explained by Dr. Michael Newton in his excellent books, these newborn souls will train on special test worlds which are not real, but computer-generated, holograms, for the young souls to practice in before they are let loose in the real 4% universe. It's an interesting concept, which gives a hint of the hologramic nature of the matrix. Next, the founders are attaching the soul/information cloud together with its avatar and emotional body onto a bioknd, biological body. The founders are also attaching information clouds in certain ways to animals, plants, and rocks etc., and put their imprints on them. The newborn EC now has its own bioknd to use in 3D to explore the new world and evolve under the laws of free will, deaf and non-interference, hopefully. The goals for the species are already programmed into the DNA, but can be changed by the individuals, and the species as a whole as they evolve. If they choose a different path, anything is possible. With time, a species will learn how to use their multidimensional abilities and will reach out to the stars, and eventually they may not need to stay on their planet anymore and simply move on. The planet gets a resting period and may then become host for a new experiment by the same, or other founders. So, the above is what is supposed to happen, and we can see that the soul and the mind go together, just like James said in the beginning of this section. However, this is not what is happening on Earth. It all started out with the best of intentions, and in fact, the early humans were created as a very special species with very special and honorable goals, and the fires were already inserted into these highly multidimensional androgynous bodies. However, once upon a time, humankind was, as explained in the previous paper, hijacked by an alien race, which Sitchin called the Anunnaki, basically originating from the Sirius star system. What this invader force did in a nutshell on a metaphysical level was that when a body died and the EC went to the blat, an invader force was waiting there. Ever heard of the tunnel of light? The individual was still allowed to create new goals after they had reviewed their previous lifetime, and perhaps a few before that, and could enjoy moments of peace and joy. However, these goals were checked against a council to see if they were innocent enough to be approved. If so, the person got a go-ahead. If not, false goals were implanted into the being on top of the real goal by using fast-moving pictures on a screen while the victim was glued to a metaphysical chair. These fast-moving pictures went right into the subconscious mind and were there processed in high speed as if they were the person's real goals. They were repeated until the soul believed this was their real goal. Let's say the person had as his goal to become a foreman in the gold mines. This was a goal the Syrians loved and highly supported if there was a vacant foreman spot anticipated, but if a person's goal was to escape from the mines, of course they changed his goal before he reincarnated. Then, when the EC was shot down into a body, they were forced into a veil of amnesia, which made them forget all their previous lives while down on the planet. The veil of amnesia was programmed into the human body's DNA, so as soon as the spirit entered the body, they started forgetting who they were and what they were doing there, and a state of confusion hit the recently entered EC. And the EC was getting constantly recycled, reincarnated, instead of living their lives fully at all times, with total recall. I write this in past tense, but it's still going on today. However, there seems to be more freedom now regarding what goals we can choose and what not. Much more on this later. By doing this, the Syrians and their cohorts had full control over us, because we no longer knew who we were and where we came from. We started thinking that being slaves to this invader force was a normal condition for us. And this is how it still is today. Only difference is that we are waking up and start remembering. This, to a large degree, has to do with solar flares, sun spots, and gamma rays, which bombard the Earth from both our own sun, the central sun, Alcyone, and the galactic center, which we now are aligning with. Gamma rays carry tons of information and trigger our DNA and help us decode encoded strands, which we call junk DNA, but is none of the sort. There is a very special reason, beyond any other reasons, why the Pleiadians want us to stay grounded in our bodies while we are reaching out to the stars. The bodies are being decoded by the electrical impulses from the electrical sun and the galactic center. This means that our junk DNA is now being reactivated, and we can once again become what we were before the invaders came. So hold out, things will get better for us. The problem we have now with the personality issue after we've been enslaved is that we forget who we are when we move into the next incarnation. This means that our personality changes, and can change drastically, when we compare different lives. We can be the sweetest person in one life, but when we are born into another genetic bloodline next time, we are pretty much subjected to the memories embedded in the DNA of that bloodline, plus what our parents teach us, plus our experiences while we grow up, etc., environmental issues. This doesn't mean we lose our basic personality that is the real us, but it does mean that we can be each other's opposite from lifetime to lifetime until many of us one day soon will wake up totally to whom we are on a soul level and can regain our basic, loving personality. Most people, throughout time, don't even know that they live again and again, but now we start realizing that we do. Due to the veil of amnesia, we can no longer easily access our previous lives, and we have to relearn everything we already know on a soul level every single lifetime, and this is the whole purpose, because then the powers that be can reprogram us via their educational system to teach us only enough to become the perfect slaves, and how to pay our taxes, how to make the rich richer, and how to remain poor but still think we are free. It's the perfect trap almost if it wasn't for the fact that we are waking up from our sleep state, more rapidly now than ever before. The question is, are we waking up fast enough? I told you to keep in mind that the multiverse is fluid. Now I will explain why that is so important to understand. First of all time is simultaneous, so on a higher, multidimensional level, all our lifetimes happen at once, and we leave our imprints in each and every lifetime we have lived. Therefore, both those who say we live all lifetimes simultaneously, and those who say we simply reincarnate as the same soul over and over, are both correct in a way. Let me explain. Even if you lived a lifetime in the 1500s, which obviously is in the past from our point of view, it is still possible, because of the fluid multiverse, to access that lifetime in your mind and change the events and outcome of it. This is possible because you left your imprint there and that lifetime is not gone, it still exists in the fluid multiverse. We are now almost at the end of a great year, one great year being roughly 26,000 years, one orbit around the zodiac, and time is speeding up. This is normal and always happens at the end of a cycle, and those who are born to live through these times, being able to have a body here in this particular time period must consider themselves very lucky, even if the challenges are great. The reason being that when a great year comes full circle, each being has the great opportunity to heal themselves along the lines of time. By taking on the challenges we are facing now, on a soul level, more and more so every day, and do what we can to resolve them, we are healing old lifetimes at the same time. The problems we are facing right now, both on an individual basis and as a collective, are what we normally call karma. What blows up in our face are unresolved problems and issues from many previous lifetimes we've had on this planet. If we handle accordingly, we will heal and evolve exponentially, because we no longer have unresolved issues from the past attached to us, which will draw our energy and attention from the very present, which is the only thing that really exists. Everything is one big present. When we heal issues in our present during this time period, we also heal both our past lives and our future ones. Past and future are just illusions. When we start healing ourselves, whether it is emotionally or physically, we also begin to feel more and more love and understanding for the present moment and everything therein. We become more spirit or fire and stronger and more powerful than most beings in the multiverse. Why? Because of what we have gone through down here. Once we've handled our issues and regained our normal multidimensional abilities and remember who we are, very little can bring us down again, and the men of power will have no effect on us. We will go into this in more details in the last papers of Level 2. By healing ourselves along the lines of time, do I mean that we have to address each and every lifetime in order to heal? No, the issues we are facing during this current lifetime, roughly between now and 2012, are the ones we need to address in order to fully heal on a soul level. Unresolved issues are a chain of events. Let's say you have a recurring problem in your love relationship. You can then be quite certain you have had this problem in many previous lives. But when fully coming to terms with the problem in present time, you break the chain, and the same problem will be resolved in your previous lives. There are multiple timelines in existence, and hence, there are many parallel universes where you exist in as well, in a slightly different version of reality based on different outcomes. For example, there are timelines where Hitler won the war and where 9/11 never happened. This is irrelevant to your healing process, you only heal the timeline you are in every single moment in life because that's where the healing needs to take place. 7.1. The fire and the avatar. So let's back up a little bit so we can explain a little deeper what a soul is and what it is composed of. Robert Morningsky talks about souls being small pieces of fires who inhabit our bodies. They are tiny nanoparticles, which correspond to the subquantum level of the universe. These tiny fires are borrowed by the founders directly from the goddess. The goddess/spirit, the 96% or the universe, lends her energy from the ocean of consciousness to the founders to use when creating new fires. Therefore, the fire is feminine in nature. You can even see this when a baby is created in a woman's womb. The baby is always a girl to begin with and the gender may stay the same throughout the pregnancy and the baby becomes a female, or the gender changes before the baby is born and the newborn ends up being a male. When the Creator God has borrowed this intelligent energy from the goddess, a fire that is still in infancy, without any experience in the physical universe, the founders attach an avatar and a mind, emotional body, to the fire in a superior form of compartmentalizing the fire into different sections with different tasks. This avatar is the same as the light body in New Age circles and amongst spiritual researchers. But it's much more than just a light body that we use in the ether when our physical body is dead. A common belief is that the light body/avatar is the body we use in the between life area, blah, to manifest ourselves, choosing how we want to look. For example, a 90-year-old woman dies on Earth and goes to the blah and meets her relatives. She is somewhat shocked, because many of these relatives died when they were old, but here they look like when they were young, when they were in their best years. They explain to the 90-year-old that this is how they prefer to look like, because that's when they liked themselves best when they were on Earth. They tell the 90-year-old that she can do exactly the same thing just by thinking about looking the way she wants. So, there in the ether, without the resistance of a body, the 90-year-old does what she was suggested, and Viola. She looks like she did as a 25-year-old. So what is happening here? Well, the soul, the mind, and the avatar leave the physical body together, they are never separated. So here, in a less dense environment, the souls can use their avatar and shape themselves as they please, and everybody else will see the change. This is also a clue to what shape-shifting really is. Interestingly enough, in Dr. Michael Newton's books, based on these more than 7,000 witnesses telling us through regression therapy exactly what happens between lives, people who died said they were picked up by their spirit guides, and although it mostly seems to be a pleasant experience, some witnesses were horrified, because their guide looked like a demon, or looked very scary to the deceased. Then, all of a sudden the guide changed shape into something much more pleasant, laughing and saying he was only joking. Well, not very nice perhaps, but what this guide did was to change shape of his avatar, making him look scary just because he could. This, I should add, seems to be a very rare event. In most cases, the guides look very pleasant. Perhaps the discarnate soul in these cases needed a wake-up call, so the guide manifested himself in this negative way, who knows? We often hear from star races that humanity is royal, and many researchers are wondering why that is. Later on we are going to discuss the reason for this, and in fact, it's a very important subject and goes like a line through the whole second level of learning.